I'm Daniel, and in the 21st century, everything is based around technology, with cell phones, television, media, everything. But mainly, one that's targeted toward the youth are video games. And my proposition is that video games today are harming the growth and development of today's generation. Firstly, by being one of the main causes of obesity, as well as diminishing social skills, and as well as creating an addiction for these video games. Starting with my first claim is that video games today are one of the primary reasons for the increase in obesity in America today. A study done by the Center for Disease Control showed that children from the ages of 6 to 11 in 1980, only 7% were obese. But by the time of 2010, that increased to 18%. And from the ages of 12 to 19-year-olds, 5% were obese in 1980, and it rose again to 18% in 2010. The reason for 1980 is that video games started with Atari, which was founded in 1971, and has grown to be a $78 billion industry for video games. So by the time that it started, it has increased substantially of the number of children that are obese. And it's difficult for people to decide whether or not to play a video game or not because of all the marketing that's out there. And let's face it, who would rather be inside in an air-conditioned room playing video games and not having a care in the world, or outside and facing the struggles of life? Which is one of the main reasons why kids stay indoors and play these games. And with that, it leads to a more unhealthy diet, and as well as a lack in exercise. By staying indoors all day leads to my second claim, is that social skills for today's youth are being diminished through the virtual worlds portrayed in today's video games. From a study done by the LA Times, says that young people spend about 53 hours a week on media devices. And this is more than a full-time job, and these are more hours than a full-time job, which leads to less interaction with real people. And with this, there's a loss of skills of communication through speaking to others. And through these loss of skills, it's damaging to the child, because these are much needed skills in order to succeed in life. Lastly is, video games have created a new addiction, which is sometimes more powerful than drugs or alcohol. And the definition for addiction is that addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry. Dysfunction in these circuits leads to characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward and or relief by substance use and other behaviors. There's been many cases where addiction of anything has led to harm, and with video games, in 2009, an Ohio court sentenced 17-year-old Daniel Petrick to 23 years in prison for shooting his mother because she took away his Halo 3 game. Another case is in New Mexico, where Rebecca Colleen Christie was sentenced to 25 years in prison for malnutrition of her daughter because she was too busy playing World of Warcraft. Video games not only affected the person that's addicted, but as well as everyone around them, and can lead to a loss of life, money, and even their conscience. So the obesity, loss of social skills, and addiction are mainly to prove my point that video games today are harming the growth and development of today's generation.
All right, Daniel, there's several really solid things, and then there are a couple of issues that we need to work on. The propositions very clearly identified. I thought you did a good job on that. There was an excellent layout of what the secondary claims are going to be. You were solid there. As you got to each of those points in the body of the speech, you signposted them. So organizationally, everything is strong. You kind of explained the premise of each of the supporting points also. So it's relatively easy to follow the ideas and the reasoning that you're providing. Now, you need better evidence to back up that reasoning, because I think some of the places you just have some assumptions that are being filled in here. That Atari started in the 1970s, that kids weighed a certain amount in 1980, and that they are all obese now. You're pointing the finger at the video games and technology, and you've got an explanation about how that might be true, but that's all you've got is the explanation and this, the statistical link that, well, we've got more video games now. It's a $78 billion a year industry compared to the way it was, and we got a bunch of fat-ass kids sitting out there too. So, I understand how you can see that there's a relationship here, but there are plenty of people who are pointing fingers in other directions for the issue of obesity, including, the fast food marketing, the changes in the way foods are prepared, parenting skills, that sort of thing. So why do we lay it at the feet of video games or technology? You need a better argument on that. On the issue on social skills, this is the place where I thought the evidence was the weakest, because basically your only evidence is that they spend a lot of time playing the video games. But that doesn't tell me that they lose social skills as a consequence of playing the video games. In fact, aren't they playing against somebody most of the time? Don't they have partners that they have to interact with? If they're interacting online, playing one of those massive multiplayer online role-playing games, or whatever they call them, that sort of thing, aren't they interacting with lots of people online? And isn't there, smack talk going on and those sorts of things? Now, if you could show that those are the kinds of skills that people learn, and then they have a hard time getting a job because they say, in your face, when they successfully complete an interview, or they don't get the job and they say to the guy who doesn't hire them, die, mother, whatever, then I could say there's some reason to believe that their social skills have been hurt. But right now, all I've got is this correlation that they spend a lot of time playing the video games, but I don't have any information that says that they don't have social skills. Do I believe that they might not have social skills? Maybe. But you need to prove it, and there isn't anything on that. And then on the last argument about addiction, you're relying on a couple of examples. They're good examples to illustrate the point, but again, they're just examples, and it would be a good place if you had some more statistical information. I think, in fact, you've got some information in the speech that you could already apply there. The fact that people are spending more time playing the games than they are spending at work would seem to indicate that there's some kind of addictive personality going on here, that there is a loss of other activities as a consequence. There has to be a trade-off on time. That shouldn't be hard to figure out. I mean, it's simple math. How much time is there every week? If you spend this much time at work, this much time asleep, this much time playing video games, what does that leave for everything else that usually takes up people's time? And you could be able to explain to us why the addiction is problematic. So you need to do a little bit more on that. I thought that you had a pretty good summary at the end of the speech, too. All right, thank you.